I'd like to introduce you. It's 2 o'clock, and Ron Rizzo is going to be our guest speaker today. He's from Branch 8, and he's been in service for almost 3 years. Presently, he's the chairman of the book group, which he did a presentation yesterday, and also as an assistant chairman of the book exchange. We're very fortunate to have him because he knows other things other than books. He's a very sharp guy in the game of Mahjong. So one of the things he wanted to do was to reach out to members that might be interested in having games that they could enjoy as we reopen. So he has spent 36 years in the Department of Agriculture in the Western Region office out of San Francisco, and he got to go all the way up to Alaska, Hawaii, America, Samoa, Guam, and is it the Northern Mariana Islands? Is that islands or islands? And he's been dedicated to working with the state, the tribal, and the local health departments. Received his BA from political science. That's probably useful right now, huh? And from UCLA, and he got his MA from the Asian Studies from the University of Hawaii. That's a pretty tough place to get a degree in. I gotta say, he's doing great. He met his beautiful wife of 47 years, Amy, when he took a tour in Taiwan. Okay. So I'd like to introduce you to Ron Rizzo. He's going to take the time today to explain how to play this beautiful game. And let's see, what else can I say for the good of the cause? I want to welcome the rest of the members that have been coming here for the last 2 months. We've been doing these activities to try to help, especially the smaller branches, get new activities. We're fortunate to have large branches still very active, maybe in smaller in number, but very active in the sense of using Zoom and also continuing with their activities. I want to also announce in the background, there's Kent and Adekinjo today. They're both co-hosts, and they're wonderful guys. They've been with me through thick and thin. We did the Diversity Forum, and we also did last month's activities. So without further ado, may I please have Ron Rizzo.
Okay, thanks, Lee.
Yes.
Lee mentioned that I married a girl while I was in Taiwan. She was a tour guide. And we met when I first got there. So I was an exchange student in a sense for that period, MA. And earlier I'd been an exchange student from UC Riverside to go to Hong Kong for a year. So with my wife's family, I lived there for like over a year. So that's where I learned to play Mahjong. So we played quite often. It's a fun game. It's a challenging game. So if any of you have ever been to like Taiwan or Hong Kong, and I know Kinju mentioned this the other day, in China, this is a loud game. It's played with tiles. The name Mahjong started out as Ma Chue, and Chue meant sparrow. And the sound of the sparrows clacking around was the reason they gave it that name. So players talk all the time. I play bridge too. It's a very quiet game. But Mahjong in China is a very loud game. And so the players are chatting all the time, challenge each other all the time. And there are, Mahjong conceptually is very similar to Gin Rummy, if any of you play it. Gin Rummy, you have sets, you have 3 sets of a kind, same card, or same honor, like 3 kings, or you have 3 in a row in a suit. Mahjong is almost exactly the same, but instead of three sets of 3 and one of 4, which Gin Rummy has, you pick up the winning card as the 13th card. In Mahjong, you start with 13 tiles and you win on the 14th tile as you pick it up. So in Mahjong, it's the same. You have sets of 3 or 3 in a row in a suit. And then you have a pair at the end. So it has the type of Mahjong I play, it has, you win by getting 4 sets of 3 and 1 set of 2. So conceptually, it's very easy. But I compare this, this conceptual play, you can play it very quickly after we go through the session, just to play and go out. But playing Mahjong to playing Gin Rummy is like playing chess versus playing checkers. Mahjong has an offensive side, it has a defensive side. You have to be watching what players discard all the time because that impacts both what you're going to do on offense and what you're going to do on defense. So it's easy to learn in a sense, except for the strange characters. But you know, to play really well and win, it's much more complicated. So that's really what I want you to take away today is understanding you're not going to remember all the stuff I go through today. It'll be like teaching you how to play chess in a couple hours. But it is a really fun game. It's a really challenging game. So because we have so few attendees today, what I'd like to do is just keep it open. So, you know, if you have a question, at least at the start, you can ask just as we go along. If I get caught for time, then I may start limiting it. But I want to make sure you understand, because the first part of this is the main part.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Have you found any way to play online virtually?
There is online. I don't play it myself online.
Okay, thank you.
So there may be some.
I did find some apps online through Apple, the Apple app or store, but they're not designed so that you can play. I was telling you that the other day, Ron.
Mhm.
It's not designed to play others. The ones that I've seen so far, I'm still going through. The ones that I have, it seems like you just play the computer, and it's not the actual Mahjong that Ron's going to be talking about today.
Right. Ideally, there would be something out there where you would be playing against 3 robots because there's 4 seeds. That's a good way to learn, actually, is if you could just play sample hands against the robots, pick it up quicker. But the online site I'll give you, they have videos where somebody's at the table and just, as the cards are played, he explains, you know, some of the strategy to you as well. So on that site, you can, you know, learn a little more that way. So when you start out a Mahjong, you have to have 2 things. You have to have a Mahjong set, which is a set of 144 tiles, and you have to have a pair of dice. But most Mahjong players also have 2 other things. They have sticks that they put in front of them to balance the tiles. It's kind of like when you play Scrabble, you have the Scrabble, I don't know what you can call it, but you stick your tiles in there. And then they have what they call a wind round carrier, I guess. Little plastic piece with the 4 different winds as a die inside it. And I'll explain later as we go on why that's useful. So why don't we get started? We'll start with the first slide. So don't worry about that Could you back up on this, Kent? I want the whole screen. There you go. That'll be sufficient for most of the time. So you see below, these are the first suits, 2 or 3 suits. So number 1 is bamboos. Some people call them BAMs when they're playing. And the unusual thing in this, it's the only kind of confusing tile. If you look at the first bamboo, you look at the second bamboo, there's like 2 bamboo sticks, but the first tile is not a bamboo stick, so it's a bird. And as you'll see on the second screen, it gets sometimes confused with some other things. So you have to remember that the one bamboo is a bird. The next suit is called characters. Some people call them numbers. Some people call them cracks. So these are the actual Chinese numbers, 1 through 9. So you'll notice on this set, for each character in the upper right-hand corner, there's a number. So it's very easy for you to know. The set I have has no numbers. It doesn't identify, what they are. But you want to make sure if you're buying a Mahjong set, and you want to play, that you have a set that has these numbers on them. Okay, second slide. So at the top, we have the third set, which is dots or wheels or barrels. So everything is just 1 through 9. So the barrels and the bamboos, as you could see, if it's a 5 bamboo, it has 5 dots. So it's pretty easy to identify what the number is. Then the next group are the winds. So in Chinese, the wind order is east, south, west, north. On a map, the south and the north winds would be exchanged. But in China, this is the way they traditionally have this. And supposedly it's based on the celestial winds rather than a map wind. So that's one grouping. The next grouping are called dragons usually. So there's a red dragon, a white dragon, and a green dragon. And lastly, there are but they are flower tiles and season tiles. There's 1 tile for each season and then 4 flowers. So the Mahjong set's made up of 144 tiles. For the dragons, winds, and the suits, there's 4 of each tile. For the season and wind tiles, season and flower tiles, there's only 1 of each. So there are 3 basic ways to play Mahjong systems, and there are many systems within each of these. The first one plays like I do, like this one is going to show. It's playing the 13 tiles where you get 4 sets of 3 and 1 pair. But they have a 16 tile set, or 16 tile game, which has 5 sets of 3 and 1 of 2. And the winds in the game we're going to play today, the flower and the season tiles and what we're going to play today, we don't play with those tiles. People who play 13 tile Mahjong usually don't play with these because each of these counts a point, but it's all luck. So you don't keep these in the hand. All the other tiles you keep in your hand and play with them. These you don't play with. They're just, you pick one up, you put it aside, and that's just an extra point for you. So it's completely luck. So those are the basic blocks you have to acquaint yourself with. Next slide. So, like I said, the objective of the game is to get a complete set, 4 sets of 3, 1 pair. Okay, so in here they're going to mention it goes into a later, but there are 3 things you do when you're playing, or 3 options. One is peng, which just in Chinese means bump, but peng. And what that is you have 2 of a kind in your hand, and some other player plays the same card. You peng, and you make 3 of a kind in your hand, and you lay those 3 down face up on the board or on the table. The next is called, they write Chao Kung as Shi in Mandarin, and that just means eat. So commonly we just use the term eat when we take the card, where you have maybe a 2-3 in a suit and you pick up a 4 that's discarded, then you're eating it. And the final one is gong in Mandarin. They're showing it here as kung. And that is where you have 4 of a kind. So those are the 3 things you're going to be playing to do. And how you choose to do each of them is the strategy. So the thing to remember on this is, if it's my turn and I have 2 of a suit, two bamboos, say, I can take any discard from the others, the other 3 players. I call peng and I take it in my hand. Which, sure, it's different. I can only eat from the player on my left. So if I have the player on my right throws a card I want to eat, I can't take it. You only can take and eat a tile if the player on your left throws it. The only time you can take it from another player is if you actually win the hand on that tile. So the way they start a game is you pick out 4 of the different win tiles, and then go to the next slide. Okay, that's just showing the different wins. And so you're the first person to draw the east tile. East is the dominant position. So that's the player that normally is going to start the game. So then after that, the players just fall into line based on where they're sitting at the table. Nobody changes seats. So on this position, if C at the bottom out of the 4 tiles picks up the east tile, he's going to start. Player B is going to be south. Player A is going to be north, and player D is going to be west. I'm sorry, yeah. That's the opposite of this, I'm sorry. So B is the dominant tile here, east, south here, west here, north here. Next slide. So you start out with the tiles. So we're playing without the flowers and playing without the seasons. There are 136 tiles because you're taking out the wind tiles. So each side is going to have 17 tiles. There's 17 rows of 2 tiles. So they have a bottom and a top row. And this is the way the setup looks. It's called the wall. Okay, next slide. So this is just top, I'm not going to go over, it's just the direction. But so it's the directions that would go when the dice are thrown. So once the wall's built, East is going to throw the 2 die. And in this case, he throws an 8. So East is position 1, and it just goes around to get to 8. And that means that the north wall, the tiles in front of north here, are the wall that's going to be breached. So that's telling you where you're going to start to pick up your tiles. Okay. So they play here where you pick up the east tile, you're starting that position. But once you've gone this round, this way, then whoever is sitting in this north seat would actually become east. And he would start the game. So that may be a little confusing, but it's pretty easy to pick up. So East, at the bottom it'll just say East starts by the deal by taking the first 2 stacks of tiles. So that's a four tiles in all. And it rotates around until everybody has 16. Then each player will take the next tile to make up the 13th tile. Okay, next slide. So ignore the top part. The replacements, if you play Flowers and Seasons, like I said, they get put down immediately and you have to pick up another tile. So they're not in play. Also, I mentioned earlier, there's a thing called gong or kong, which is where you get 4 of a kind. So if you have 4 of a kind in your hand to start, you have to decide whether to keep those in your hand or to lay them down. Once you lay them down, then you have to pick up another tile. And you pick up that tile, not the next in order of the tiles, but you have to take that from the back of the wall. So there are reasons if I have like, say I have 4 of the 2 of 2 dots. I have 4 of those 2s. So I can lay them down immediately. I have a gong. Or I can try to use those in my hand. So I may keep them because maybe I'll have a hand where I can get maybe a 2, 3, 4. Used it one of the 2s in a set of 3 for eating. And there's extra points as you do that. So there's a decision at the beginning whether you want to lay down immediately or not. But if you have like wind tiles or dragon tiles, there's no way you can play with those in your hand. You can't eat anything. So if you have 4 winds of a wind or 4 of a dragon, then you would lay them down immediately and pick up another tile from the back of the wall. Next slide. So I kind of mentioned the order in which you're playing and what the Peng Gong and Chao are. So as I said, anybody throwing a card, anybody who needs to make a Peng can take it from any other player. Anybody who wants to eat something has to take it from somebody on the left. So we're not playing Flowers and Season tiles. So when we're waiting to win, which is down here, this is just something they call ting. It just means you're waiting to win. You only need 1 tile thrown by somebody else and you can go out of the game. You don't declare this. It's just the term used when you're in this position. So then when you win, as I said, You have 4 sets of 3 and you have 1 pair. So at the end, the Mahjong round, there are 4 rounds. So each player gets a turn being east, south, west, and north, having that seat. So this means basically there are only 16 hands that you're playing. So I'll mention first that the slides I'm showing are from something called MCH Mahjong. This is the game sanctioned by China to be played internationally. So this is like international rules, but there are many other types of playing. The big difference is what counts as points. So this one is tournament. So they just play these 16 hands. That's it. When you play otherwise, normally what happens if I'm sitting east and I'm the dealer that round, and I win, then I'll keep playing from that position. So I can play maybe 3 or 4 hands just sitting in my position before somebody else wins, and then it transfers to the person on my right. So it's usually much longer than 16 hands. In fact, it's always much longer than 16 hands. So it could go on for quite a while to go through the 4 rounds if the winning person gets on a streak. Next slide. So here they're just showing, okay, let me back up a second. What I'm showing here under miscellaneous, say in some versions of Mahjong, no dead tiles are designated. So a lot of different types of Mahjong, they play where you're taking the tiles from the wall until you get to the last 7 tiles, the last 14 tiles, and you stop there. You never go beyond it. So the game ends before you play all the tiles. Those are called dead tiles, those 7 in that area. So when I play where we go all the way through. So there are no dead tiles. And I will say it's very rare. I've only had it happen. I played a long time. I may have had it, I can count them on one hand, the number of times I've played where you go to the end and no one wins. So well, actually it's more than that, but it's rare. So the first set's just an example of something you eat. So you have 1, 2, 3 bamboo here. Pong below, you have five bamboos. And at the bottom, you have a gong. These are five characters. Okay. Now let me just say something about gong for a second. So you have gong like this. This is in my hand. So if I want to lay it down, I just lay them down on the table, and I have 3 down and 1's up to show what the tile was. If I do that, say at the very beginning, my hand is still considered closed. I have the tiles in my hand. If you keep all 13 tiles in your hand the whole game, then you're going to get extra points if you win, having a closed hand. So if you have a gong like this in your hand, you lay it down, you're still considered to have a closed hand, even though these are exposed. The other thing about gong, if you're playing 16 tile particularly, they play it where they lay these down, but they don't show the other players. So those players don't know that these tiles are missing from the board. They have no chance of getting them, but nobody's going to know that. So we don't play that way. That's, but in competitive 16 tile Mahjong, that's normally how they play. Next slide. Okay, what they're talking about here at the top is just what I mentioned. So the ones in your hand are called the concealed gong. The other way you have a gong is if you have 3 in your hand already and somebody throws the 4th, then that becomes a gong for you. That's an extra point. But you lay them all down face up because you got one of those tiles from another person. You didn't draw that yourself. So there's a difference between a concealed gong in your hand and an exposed gong in terms of points. Okay. And then the pair can be any 2 tiles. Next slide. Next slide. That's so the game is basic. You can play very quickly. That's it. You know, just play, you draw, you pong, you go out as soon as possible. There's no real strategy in that. And as you'll see, when we play points, you usually don't want to go out soon or as quickly as possible because you want to build your points. But then you have to also play defensively so you win before somebody else does. So Mahjong, playing Mahjong is like playing poker. Nobody plays poker just throwing the cards out. You always usually need some sort of stakes to make it worthwhile. So most people are playing it for money. But, you know, among friends or whatever, you don't have to play for money. You can say whoever wins most points at the end of the hand maybe gets a free lunch or free dinner or something like that. When I play with my friends and family, we usually play for money, but we say we're playing for $10 limit or $20 limit, very small stakes, which means if I lose all my tiles, I still, throughout the hand, I'm never going to lose more than $10 or more than $20. So you're playing for very low stakes. So this, it's not showing here as a link, but if you look at my cursor, you see this is the site I mentioned earlier. It's Mahjong, MAHJONG, time.com. Okay, so there's an almost infinite, oh, I'm sorry, take it off the hook, hon. I forgot. So there are an infinite amount of variations in what points you use and how you score and how much is attributed to each point in terms of money. So the type of Mahjong I play, and I played with my wife's family, was a variation of one, but over the time, we just pick and choose. You know, we like this to count as points, we don't like that. So we have our own variation that nobody else plays. So you have, if you're going to start and you want to set up something, at the beginning, you need to set out which things you want to use as getting points, which ones you don't. And the samples I'll show you give you some idea of what you can count. But it's, like I say, it's a complete variety of ways, unless you're playing like in a tournament. If you're playing in China, they have gambling dens. So where they're playing, they have the rules already set, Mahjong house. But among friends, you know, when you're starting, you just can pick and choose yourself. Okay, next. So as I say, one of the key decisions at the start of play is whether or not you're using the season of flower tiles. They're always 1 point each. I mentioned earlier, 16, when you play 16 tile, that is normally played where you want to get out as fast as possible. So players are playing not so much strategy, they're playing to get out quickly before somebody else does. But in 13, usually you're playing more towards the points than you are for quickness of winning. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this is differences in how you pay out. So this system shows when the player wins, every player has to pay the winner. And the one who throws the tile that loses it usually is going to pay more than the other two. But if you win it by yourself, you're going to get the maximum amount from everybody. So in this system, the people pay a certain number of points, based on the number of points, set an amount, and then whoever threw the discarded tile pays double that. They have a play where the person who discards the winning tile pays the full amount for the points, and the other two players pay only half of that. And then when you play 16 tile, only the player who discards the winning tile pays. So that's much more defensive play, because you can play a long time and not lose any money just if you never throw the winning tile away. So down here, this is where we get into points, and we'll get into that later. But if, say, a player has out 3 sets, he's eaten 3 sets, they're all bamboos, 3 sets of bamboos. Well, if he gets all bamboos, that's a very big hand. So when you're playing, if, say, some player has 3 sets of bamboos out, and I'm throwing a bamboo away and he wins on it, then I'm going to have to pay the full amount because I threw him the winning tile, but I also have to pay half of what the other players would pay because I'm throwing into a danger hand, a known danger hand. If that other player has 4 sets out, they're all bamboo, and I throw a bamboo, I have to pay everything. I have to pay for all the players. So this is just an example of where you have to decide as you're going along whether you want to keep playing offense or whether you have to kind of give up your hand just so you don't throw away the winning tile and pay everything. So it's always a judgment, because I may have in my own hand, I may have the same thing. I may have all of, say, the character tiles, and I know I don't have mine exposed, but this other guy has all his bamboo tiles exposed. I throw it, he wins, I lose everything. But I have such a big hand myself, depending on what's happened, I may take that risk, because if somebody throws the one I need, I have such a big hand. So that's just part of the strategy you play. Next slide. So the next slides are 29 slides. MCR goes from, this is a 1-point hand, they go to an 88-point hand. And in MCH scoring, you have to have at least 8 points to go out. You can't just go out if you have 1 or 2 points. So you have to at least have 8 points to win. But I can win 10 8-point hands, and somebody else wins one 88-point hand. I'm still not he's still going to be ahead of me in terms of his money. So that's why you have to make a, so it's important the strategy you play, when you want to play to go out soon, you may not have a very good hand, or whether you want to play longer to score the most points. And that's a constant thing throughout the game. So the first one on this screen is you're eaten twice. So you have 2 runs in the same suit. So down here you have the 3, 4, 5 bamboo. If you have another 3, 4, 5 bamboo, that's in point. Now this one has what they call a mixed double chow, where it's 2 runs, 1 in each of the suits, 2 suits, same numerical sequence. So you could have the 3, 4, 5 bamboo, 3, 4, 5 character, they give you a point. We don't play that. That's way too easy normally for us to even count points, but here they count it. So they count it whether it's in the same suit or 2 different suits. Then short straight, you have 2 sets that are in this consecutive order, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They count that as a point. You eat 2 where you have the ends, they count that as a point. So you have the 1, 2, 3 bamboo here. You have the 7, 8, 9. They both include the end. The 9 is an end, the 1 is an end. So because they're ends, you get a point for that. This next one, if you pung 1, 9, they count that, or an honor tile is either a dragon or a wind. So the next one is a melded gung. So this is Yukong, Kung or Gong. This is just if you gong based on what another player throws you. That's a point. Voided suit means a hand that lacks tiles from one of the 3 suits. So you could have just bamboo and barrels, but no characters. They'll give you a point for that. Next slide. They're giving you a point for no honors. So everything in your hand is a suit. You don't have any winds or dragons in your hand. They have, I'm going to skip number 9 because I couldn't find a difference between it and number 10, which is a closed weight. So if I'm just waiting for one tile to win, and the tile I need, in this case, they're showing the 2 and the 4 of a suit, and I need to get the 3 to win, that means I can only win on that one tile. That gets me an extra point. If this was the 2 and 3 in the suit, then I could win on either the 1 or the 4. So I have 2 choices there. So they give you an extra point because you just decide you're waiting for 1. Then single weight is waiting for 1, but that's just going to be your Mahjong. So if I have, say, a red dragon in my hand, and I have 4 sets in my hand, and somebody throws a red dragon, that's a single weight because I'm just waiting for that 1 tile. Self-drawn, if I pick up the winning tile myself, then I'm going to get a point because I got it myself rather than somebody throwing it away.
No point, it's double pay.
And then flowers and season tiles, I mentioned already, they normally we don't play with them. So next slide. These are the 2-point hands. So you pung or gong any of the dragon, white, green, or red dragon. That's a point. Prevalent wind, that's a point. So prevalent wind, I should have mentioned this when you're playing with, you're playing with the winds. Prevalent wind means the first 4 hands are the east round. That's the prevalent wind, that hand. The next 4 hands are the south round. So south becomes the prevalent wind for that hand. The other thing about your seating is that in addition to the round, your seat also is assigned to wind. So that rotates, but the wind for the round, say, is east. So it's the east round, but if I'm sitting east, that's also my personal wind. So in the east round, if I'm sitting south, I'll get a point for the, if I pung the east wind because it's east round, but I also get a point for punging the south wind because I'm south that hand. So when I'm east, I'm both the prevalent wind and I'm in the seat. So if I'm in the east seat and I get a pung, then I get 2 points because I have both the round wind and the seat wind. Okay, down here is a concealed hand. This means I haven't eaten anything. So it's what I call a closed hand. So you get point for that. If I have everything is eat, no pung, I'll get a point for that. Tile hog they use here. If I have 4 of a single suit tile, I never declare them as a gung, I get a point for that. So this is where I mentioned in my hand I may have 4 2 bamboo, but I use the 4. I use 3 of the bamboos as in a sense as a pung, and I have a 2, 3, 4 bamboo as an eat. Okay. Then I have in a sense I have the gung in my hand, but I'm using them 2 different ways. So you get a point for that. Here they give you a point if you have 2 pungs of the same number in a different suit. So 3 2s of bamboo, 3 2s character. That's an extra point. Next slide. So 2 concealed pungs. I just have 2 pungs in my hand. They give you 2 points. We don't play that. This is way too common in a sense to give points for, but they count it here. If I have a concealed kung, I have it in my own hand and I laid it down, then I have a point, 2 points. And all simples means a hand where I don't have any 1s, 9s, dragons, or winds. They give me 2 points for that. Next slide. So these are 4 points. So if you have all the terminals, all ends in a sense. You have 1, 2, 3, you have a 1, you have 3 1s. If you have like all ends, and this one below shows like 2 wins, but all ends, that gets you 4 points. If I have a fully concealed hand I haven't thrown away and I win by myself, that gets me an extra 4 points. I've won without any help from anyone. If I pung twice to make gongs, then I'll get 4 points. And if I get the last tile, which is the last of its kind, then I get 4 points. So last tile means you look out on the board and there's three bamboos out there. And I have a 2 and a 4 bamboo in my hand. I went on the last 3. I'll get a point because I'm just waiting for 1, but I'll also get 4 points because it was the last tile available. So I'm taking a chance that somebody's going to be throwing a tile. So you may never win on this, but that's why they're giving you the extra points. Melded hand. I'm sorry, these are 6-point hands. So I'm just giving you some examples from each. So I'm just going to skip down. No, I'm sorry. So all pungs in your hand, 6 points. Half flush. You have all 1 suit plus either or both winds and dragons. That's 6 points. This one down 30, I'm going to skip the next one. 31, you have all tied so you can see characters here, dots, bamboos, dragon, wind. So you have all 5 types of tiles. Take it off the. Okay, melded hand. Every element of the hand must be completed with tiles discarded by other players. So everything is down on the board. Okay. So the strategy here, if I'm at the end of the hand and I have 3 sets down, which I've eaten, and I have a 1, 2, 3 dot in my hand, plus a Mahjong 2 pair. I have that already, maybe. So I have left just that 1 set, and I'm waiting for 1 to become a pair. I'm sorry. Yeah. So there's only 4 cards left, 4 tiles left. I may have the 1. We'll say I have the 1, 2, 3 tile up here. Somebody on my left throws the 3 tile or the 4 tile. I have this in my hand already, but I may just eat, even if it's the same numbers, say it's the 3 tile. I may eat it again and just throw the same tile from my own hand, because then that means I have just the 1 tile left. I'm waiting for Mahjong. So people will just play strategically. They're not winning on it, but they're making their hand bigger. Next slide. So these, you can see these are just jumping up in points. So these are 8-point hands. So they give 8 points for what they call a mixed straight. You have the 1, 2, 3 bamboo, 4, 5, 6 dot, 7, 8, 9 character. Just those characters, those 9 tiles give you this mixed straight. Okay, but you'll see below it says it's combined with a pure double ch and all ch. So what this is saying down below is you get 8 points for these cards, these 9 tiles here. You're going to get an extra point because you have the 1, 2, 3 bamboo here, 1, 2, 3 bamboo here. And you're going to get an extra 6 points because everything is you've eaten, you have no pong. So even though this is like 8-point hand, that's just for this item. So you keep adding other items to your points. So, like I say, in this MCH style, you need 8 points to go out. So if you have any of these hands, you're automatically eligible to go out. Next slide. So mixed triple ch means you have the 3, 4, 5 bamboo, 3, 4, 5 dot, and the 3, 4, 5 character. So in each suit, you have the same characters. That gets you 8 points. I won't go through the mixtures now because it'll take too much time, but you'll get the idea that there are other points that they can get in the hand. Skipped here, I'm going to go down to what they call a chicken hand. This is a chicken hand. There's one where you don't have any points in your hand, which is almost really hard to get. It's hard to go through this with their style where you have no points. But you could have a hand like the 1, 2, 3 bamboo and 2, 3, 4 character 3, 4, 8 dot. You have 3 winds in your hand, and the 3 winds don't have any points associated to them, and you have 1 other wind left, and you win on that wind. So, but that hand is considered 0 point. I'm sorry. That wouldn't work. If you had the pair already and you had 2 wins and you win on one of the wins, then you wouldn't be waiting for 1. So that hand wouldn't have any points. But you have to really think about it to conceive a hand that has no points. Last tile draw. If you win on the very last tile of the game, then that gets you 8 points. They give you 8 points if you go on the discard, which is the last tile of the game. So somebody else picks up the last tile of this card, so you win on that, you get 8 points. You go out on a gong. So in my hand, I have 3 of a kind. I pick up the 4th. I draw from the back of the wall, and I win on that tile. Then that gets me 8 points. If I have 2 concealed kongs, I had them both in my own hand, they give you 8 points. What they call robbing the kong or robbing the gong, which is somebody has, say, 2 bamboo in their hand, and he picks up another 3 bamboo and he lays it down to make a gong. I'm sorry. He has ponged already 3 bamboos, so that was a pong, and he picks up the 4th 3 bamboo, and he wants to add it to make it gong. If I can win on that bamboo, then I'm robbing the gong, robbing the kung. So that's 8 points. Next slide. So next slide. I'm going to skip most of these. Last slide, one more time. So this one down here shows if you pung 3 wins, then that's going to get you 12 points. Okay, next slide. So you go to 16 points. Pure straight. This is pure straight's only talking about the first 9 tiles. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 character. That's the pure straight itself. Now this hand has all character, so that's going to be much higher. But if you have the 9 in a row, in Chinese it's Yi Tiao Lung, that means a dragon. So that's 16 points here. Next slide. I'm just going to show this. So this is, everything is using a 5. It's called all 5s. So it's 3, 4, 5 here, 4, 5, 6, 3 5s, 3 5s, 5. So they're giving you 16 points because you have all the 5s in your hand. If you have 3 pungs in your hand, they're giving you that 16 points. Now, usually we don't play this unless you pick it up yourself. You know, if you're, so when you say 3 pungs, they're not distinguishing here between you have them in your hand or whether you have eaten them or punged them, but inherently it's that these 3 need to be all in your hand. But you have the 3 pungs, 1 in each suit. 3 concealed pungs. That's what this is talking about here. I'm sorry, this is 3 numbers. They do give you that many points because you have 3 dot, 3 bamboo, 3 character. Okay, next slide. So they go to 24 pair hands. So I'm just going to skip down to the last one. If you have a single suit, all bamboo, nothing else, 24 points. Next slide. Number 60, 3 runs of the same numerical sequence. 4, 5, 6, 4, 5, 6, 4, 5, 6. Next slide. Next slide. So it jumps up to 32-point hands. So I'm skipping quite a few that we don't necessarily play, but you get 32 points for 3 kung. If you have 3 gungs, whether they're melded or concealed, they're giving you 32 points because it's unusual to get a gong or a hung. Next slide. Everything's a terminal or honor. So they're all pung, but they're all wins, ones, nines, or dragons. Next slide. 48-point hands. I'm not sure why this one's not showing. But this is just saying if you had basically the gongs in your hand, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 sets of 1, 2, 3 bamboo. You had all of them, 4 sets, then they give you 48 points. That's a very unusual hand. Next slide. You had all terminals, no winds, no dragons, but they're all 1s or 9s. They're giving you 64 points. What they call the little 4 winds. You have all the winds, 3 pungs, 1 dragon. I mean, excuse me, 1 mahjong. If you have 3 little dragons, 3 dragons, they call them little 3 because you pwned the red dragon, pwned the green dragon, and you have your mahjong is the white dragon. It's called little 3 dragons because one of them's a mahjong rather than a pung itself. Next. Okay. Everything is an honor. So you either have a dragon or wind, all pungs. That's 64 points. And if you had 4 concealed pungs, you drew them all yourself, you had 4 of them, that's 64 points. So again, you're seeing the points rise dramatically, but you're seeing extremely rare hands. Last slide. Oh, not last slide. We don't play this, so next slide. These are the 88-point hands. This is the max that they have in their game. But when I say max, you know, depending on how you play, you can still add points to that. You know, to some of these. Well, some hands you can still add points. So if you know, if a hand earlier where you had like all the 1 suit in characters, you could also get like a little dragon 1 through 9 as points, whatever. Most of these bigger hands, by their nature, don't have extra points possible. So the 4 big wins, you punged all 4 wins. Okay. Big 3 dragons, you punged all the 3 of the dragons. So even though these show the rest of the tiles, they're giving you this amount for just those tiles. Next hand. Next hand. So this one is 4 gongs concealed or melded. So I'm not sure why they differentiated between this and the 4 concealed gongs earlier, but somehow they have. Last slide. So this is the rarest of hands. I've never seen one. This is called the 13 Orphans. All of your cards, you don't have any you don't have any pung. You just have end tiles, either 1s or 9s. dragons, or winds, but you only have one of them. So you never eat anything. You know, so to play this type of hand, I played it a couple of times trying to get it, but I have to have at least maybe 10 in my hand to begin with, 9 or 10 in my hand to begin with, to even attempt to try to do this. But it's such a big hand that it's maybe worthwhile to try. Could you go back a couple slides, please? Another one. So I may have misspoke here. So they may give you more points because they're saying like here is combined with all honors. So you have the 88 points because you pwned all the wins, but your Mahjong's a dragon instead of, say, the 3 bamboo. So you have all honors too. So they probably add whatever points you have for that as well. So that would be a monster hand. Okay, you can skip the next 2 slides then. Next slide. Go ahead. There you go. So this is just their scoring. I mentioned already you have to have 8 points to go out. And they just describe what I mentioned earlier. If you win on somebody's discard, all 3 other players pay you 8 as an 8-point hand. All 3 give you whatever you get for 8 points. And then whoever threw it pays double. If you win by yourself, then you're going to get 8 from everybody. Okay, next slide. If you draw yourself, they're giving you an additional 8 points to the hand. So you get what everybody else would owe you, but they're going to have to pay you based on not just on the number of points, but 8 additional points for you winning the hand. Next slide. Okay, this is the last slide. And I just wanted to show you basically a made-up hand. So this is the beginning of the game, and this is the hand I picked up. So I have 2 1 dots, 3 4 dot, 6 dot, 8 dot, 2 4 bamboo, 6 8 bamboo. I should have marked these. These are 2 east winds and a west wind. So I noticed that I said at the top, this is the east round, and east is dealer, so I'm east. So that means these 2 tiles themselves, if I pwn, I get 2 points. So that's going to determine kind of how I play. So I see right now I have dots here. I have 3 4, so I just need a 5. 6 8, I just need a 7. I have 2 4 bamboo, I just need a 3. 6 8 bamboo, I just need a 7. So I have this is a very good hand to begin with. And I have to decide how I'm going to play it. I have to strategize. Do I want to play, ideal, and it depends on what you draw. So 6 of the tiles are dots. I have a pair of east winds, I have a west wind. So maybe I'd like to play all dots with just winds beside it. That'd be a high, I get the 2 points for the east wind. I have just winds and dots, so that's going to be high score just to begin with. Again, depending on what comes, another option is maybe I keep drawing, bamboos. So maybe I'll try to play just dots and bamboos. And I have to make a hard decision then whether to keep the east wind still, because even though I get 2 points if I pwn them, first I may never get to pwn, somebody else may have them. but how long do I keep these without ponging, or before I pong? So at the very beginning, if somebody discards an east wind, I probably get a pong right away. I don't have any idea what my hand's going to look like, but I know I've got 2 points right there, and I adjust my hand accordingly. So in this hand, this is my hand to begin with. First card I pick up is the red dragon. So again, red dragon's there. That's an extra point if I get it. But that's hopeful. I may never get it. So what do I discard? So on this hand, the most obvious discard to me is this west wind. There's no points. I may not get other winds. I may not be able to do this thing. So I get rid of the west wind because that's no points. And I keep the red dragon instead. The next I pick up is a 2 character. Now, I only have dots and bamboos here. But now I've got a 2 character. So the possibilities for me are, it's likely when I'm picking up, it's random. So I probably pick up some more characters as well as some of these others. I have the 2, 3, 4 dot here. If I pick up a 2, 2, 3, 4 bamboo here, if I pick up a 3. So I have the 2 here. And maybe I'll pick up something where I can do this, 2, 3, 4 of each of this, which is quite a few points. So in this hand, if I pick up the 2 bamboo here, I'm throwing away the red dragon, because the likelihood I pick that up or being able to play just, say, mixed winds and dots may not come along. So this has the least possibilities. I'll get rid of that. So next, I pick up the 4 character. So now my hand's really looking good. So I do have the 4, 2, 3, 4 here, 2, 3, 4 here, 6, 8 here, 6, 8 here. So what I'm envisioning here is the ideal hand for me is going to be, I have the 2, 3, 4s here. I get something like a 7 here and maybe get a Mahjong here. So I have a hand where I have all 2, 3, 4s. I have no ends. I don't have any dots, or I don't have any winds. So that's kind of what I'm envisioning. So I pick up the 4 here. Then the hard choice is, do I throw away these, because they have 2 points already and I still don't have the hand. I still have 2 single dots. So it's not likely I'm going to get the just dots and winds anymore. So that's pretty much out of my thinking. So my choices here are, either I throw the 2 ends because I'd like to play with no ends and get extra points that way, or to throw away the 2 winds and maybe get a hand that may be just dots and winds, which is still a possibility. So that's the strategy. You keep thinking the whole time, and you're making your adjustments. My wife plays where she would never get rid of these. 2 points easy. Now, the Mahjong I've just shown you is not, like I said, it's not what we play. So there's up to 88. So there's up to, on this version, there's up to 88 points. So, you're playing with that in mind, because that's huge, the difference in points. So whether you play a small hand, it's with that game, playing small hands just isn't going to win for you over time. Just winning 8 points isn't going to win for you for the whole set. But my wife would normally keep these and would get rid of the dots. I may tend still to get rid of the wins first because I know I'll get 2 points for that, but I'm limited then on what other points I'm going to have in terms of like 2 of a suit, or I mean, just 2 suits, or no ends, or any of those other things, or no options if I keep these. So the choice is throw the dots or throw the wins. If I were playing, I would throw the wins, even though they're 2 points, and keep the dots. My wife would have thrown the 2 dots and keep the wins. Now, when we play, we have a very different point and score system. So we play in a sense where 7 points is your maximum. You only need 7 points. We play, you have to have 3 points just to go out.
Ron,
Yes.
I just want to say thank you. I've got to go now, and
Okay.
thank you very much for your time and all the info.
Okay.
Hi, Gary.
So the style that we play is many fewer possible points. The high point, if I have all of the same suit, I'm going to get 7 points. That's the maximum for that. And I have to have at least 3 points to go out. So we only play with another idiosyncrasy, so we can get 3 points, 4 points, 5 points, 7 points. We don't play 6 points. Doesn't get you anything. So we play where 7's the maximum, with a couple exceptions. So I have all the say I have all characters in my hand. So I get 7 points for that. But also in my hand, if I have the 1, 2, 3 character, I have it twice, 2 sets of 1, 2, 3. And I also have 7, 8, 9 character 2 times 7, 8, 9. That means I have 2 paired runs, 4 sets of paired runs, basically. So that's an extra 7 points for us. So I can get from 7 to 14, but I cannot get from 7 to 8 to 9 to 10 to 11, 12, 13. We don't have points that way. So there's whole variations in how you play points. So we don't have like all those choices. And like I didn't show you, but in that series of slides, they have what they call all green tiles, where you have all bamboos and maybe the green dragon gets you extra point. They have all vertical tiles. If you have tiles that run up and down, rather than across or mixed, like the 3 bamboo is like a triangle, so that's not vertical. So they say all verticals win. That's pretty esoteric for us, so we don't even think of playing those. So anyway, like I said at the beginning, my big plan or hope is that anybody listening in could pick up the basics of the game, how easy it is in a sense to learn, but how hard it is to learn how to play well, and how you're playing offense and defense all the time. So I will say just a couple other things. So if at the end of my hand, I have just these 4 these are the 4 items in my hand, these first 4. 2 pair of dots for like my Mahjong 3-4 where I want to eat a 2 or 4. And I draw a 6. I'll probably throw the 3 away. I have 2 choices to win here, but I probably will play for the extra points where I'm waiting for 1. So you're making your adjustments as you're going along and try to enhance your hand. So the other thing is, if somebody throws a 1 dot, and these are my last 3, I may pong the 1 dot. So I'm only waiting for 1. My hand's exposed. I'm just waiting for the last card. That gets me extra points as well. So you want to see, this may be the easiest way to win, because you can get, there's 4 2 dots, there's 4 or 5 dots. So you have a lot more chances to win than you do the other 2 ways, but you have no points. So the other thing I mentioned, and this is to do with the defense, as you're going along in the game, no matter what your hand looks like, you have to really pay attention to what the other players are doing, so you play defensively as well. You also have to pay clear attention to what is been discarded. I've played several times where I may have the 2 1 dots here, and I have the 2 and 4. Wait, I'm waiting for 3. Well, I didn't notice that all the 3s are already discarded. So you have to pay attention to what's in the pile. So you end up making like a stupid mistake like that. Okay, that's the end. So does anybody?
Well, Ron, thank you very much.
Anybody else have any
questions to ask?
No, I just want to thank Ron for all the time he put in putting this together.
Joe, I think Calvin's muted. He had a question. Calvin, you're muted.
Yeah, you're going to have to unmute, Calvin.
Oh,
There
yes. Hey, right at the beginning, you had an explanation of why the game was called Mahjong, and it had to do with a reference to a birds making sound. Is that correct?
But yes, because Mahjong originally was called Ma Chue.
Okay.
It started in southern China. So Chue was sparrow in Chinese. So they chose that name because of the sound, the scratching sound, supposedly. I mean, that's the story. And then over time it became Mahjong. And Mahjong Zhang basically means general in Chinese. So somehow it became called that. Ma doesn't have much meaning. So yeah, it was always called, yeah. It was always called that. And like Kung, that means like a level or a bar. I don't know why it was called that. But also, we talk about the pair, the last pair in the hand, the pair you have in your hand. So you call it a pair. In this game, they call it a head. I'm sorry, pair. But that's also called the John. I mean, that's normally called John, the pair. So the people will ask as you're playing, what's your John? So that would be the pair that you have.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hey, I wanted to share something with you. There was a game of Mahjong in the movie, if you recall.
Oh yeah, that was a great movie too.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier, I spent a year in Hong Kong. I spent a year in Taiwan. And as I walk around town, either place, Taiwan, Mahjong in Hong Kong, I saw it played outdoor. I think I mentioned it's a loud game. So Mahjong, you're walking around, you're walking outside, you can hear all these tiles moving around. And you hear all this chattering going on because people are talking back and forth. When they pung, they don't just say pung, which, pung. They yell it out. They just say it loud. When they win, they say who very loud. I win. So it's a very loud game.
They're having fun. Sounds like.
They're having fun. Yeah. Well.
Yeah. Now do you speak Mandarin?
Yes. I've lost it a lot over time, but when I was there, that's the only way I could communicate with my wife's family. They don't speak any English, so I had to pick up some Chinese. I'd studied Chinese for several years. I went to Hong Kong as an exchange student, and that was like my junior year. It was just a chance to go abroad. It was the only place you could go abroad where you could do it in English. If I went to France as an exchange student, I had to take classes in French. If I went to Hong Kong, I'd take classes in English at the Chinese university there. They had several they had in English. So I just decided it was like an adventure. I had no idea what I was going to do. It's like you're a kid. I was 19. It's an adventure. You go overseas for the first time. So I decided after that, I went to Riverside for 2 years, small UCal campus. I decided after that I'd like to learn more about Chinese history and stuff. So I switched to UCLA, majored in political science, but I took a course in Chinese there. And then when I went to Hawaii, I got my degree from the University of Hawaii, but Hawaii has something called the East-West Center. I don't know if any of you ever heard of it, but it has 2/3 of the students are from Asia. 1/3 of the students are from the United States.
That's mine.
The
Hey,
Asian,
that's mine.
the Asian students were all paid for. There's tuition, everything, room, board paid for by their government. I had a full scholarship where everything was paid by the U.S. State Department. All the U.S. students who went there got grants from the State Department. So everybody there is rooming with somebody from another country. They have all these social activities going on. You're really immersing yourself with these other people. At the same time, you're taking classes from the University of Hawaii. So it was a really, really interesting period. And part of the scholarship was you do some field work abroad. So I waited until the end. I've taken all my classes at the end. Most people did the same. Asian students would go to the US. US students would go to an Asian country. So at the time I went there, the Chinese mainland was not open. So the closest I could get, in a sense, was Taiwan. So I went to Taiwan and I just took language study there, just 3 months language study. And it was just before that, I got there 3 days before I was starting, and that's when I took the tour where I met my wife. She was a tour guide. And she tells people that was the best $5 I ever spent. I paid $5 for her or something. So I got into it there and I took classes, but I'm not really adept at languages. So Chinese is a very difficult language. It's tonal, and I don't really have a musical ear. So I'll often say when I speak Chinese, I may be using the wrong tones, but I can make myself understood. It's a very hard language in terms of reading because everything's rote memorization. There's no alphabet. And it's the hardest is writing it. So I never really got good at like reading the newspaper or writing. But because I was with her family all the time, I could pick things up. I could understand very well, much more than I could say. But over time here, you just don't use it. And so when my wife's mother would visit, I'd use it then. But otherwise, I never really used Mandarin. So I've forgotten, you know, a lot. Most of what I had learned, I forgot. I still can understand a lot of what people are talking about if they're speaking Mandarin. But, you know, everything is, it depends on the accent, that type of thing. So people from Beijing speak Mandarin in a different way than people in Hong Kong speak Mandarin. In Beijing, when you use an N, they often make it an R. So uh, saying something, I like this a little in Chinese is yidian, dian. But in Mandarin, they'll say EDR. So the N is kind of changed to the R. So there's all these regional variations, and they have many different dialects in Taiwan and China to begin with. So for me, it has to be somebody speaking perfect Mandarin uh, when I can understand them.
Well,
Okay, this concludes the activities week part 2. Hey, I wanted to ask a question. I understand at New Year's they wear red underwear when they play Mahjong. Is that true?
My wife says that's a Cantonese thing, not a Northern,
Um,
Red is good.
because red means good luck. That's why they give out these red envelopes with money as gifts.
sure.
He's red.
Yeah, wedding, they're always red because that's good luck.
Mhm. You know, in the beginning, I don't know if you mentioned, but all the tiles are face down and they're shuffled around. It's a nice, noisy little atmosphere. Everyone's in the pile, shuffling the deck,
Yeah.
and then everyone has a tray. The 4 people have a tray, and then you pick your tiles, and then you line them up any way
You line
you
them up.
want to.
Yeah, it's not a tray in the same sense. You don't lay your tiles in the tray. It's a stick that helps you, like you're setting up the tiles, you want to make them in a nice row. You have the stick behind it to make sure it's even, that type of thing. So I will say just say one other thing. I mentioned the difference between like 13 tile and 16 tile, how they play. So when you play Mahjong, like I play with my wife, she always sits opposite me, always. Because people are afraid if my wife sat to my right, I may pass her tiles, she may look like she needs. So there's a chance for some bias there, the way you're putting tiles down. So you don't want to have somebody playing with his close friend. I mean, we're all friends in a sense, but I'm just saying. So when they gamble, most of the time they're playing 16 tile. Well, everybody gambles. But the big gambling places, they're playing 16 tiles.
Real gambler.
Because you go to a gambling house and you don't know these people, right? So the person sitting to my right could be my close friend, or something. Nobody knows this. So that's one of the reasons when they play 16 tiles and somebody throws the tile for somebody else to win, the other 2 don't pay. So they have this as like a safety feature when they're gambling, so that you only have to pay if the person either draws it himself or if,
No partner.
yeah, or if he throws, if you discard the tile somebody wins on. But the other 2 players are out completely in terms of who pays, and that's the reason. They're afraid there's going to be cheating going on. And some people are very good. These are tiles, right? So I always see my sister-in-law, whenever she picks up a tile, she's not looking at it, she's feeling it underneath. She can feel that this is the one dot. Feel this is one, you know what I mean? So there's many ways that these gamblers at these houses, they have to be on the watch, just like in Vegas, if you go, they're always looking down, seeing if there's something between the dealer and the player. Seeing players are counting cards. So some players may sometimes try to switch a tile, without anybody seeing it. And some would have that sleight of hand. So you're always worried about somebody cheating in those venues. When you're playing with friends,
I had the opportunity
for low stakes, it's not a big deal.
Had an opportunity to go to Hong Kong and then Kowloon
Uh-huh.
and even Macau, which is a huge Las Vegas in
Absolutely.
Asia.
Yep.
If you have enough.
Yeah, it was an interesting place. I know when I was in Hong Kong has 3 areas. They have the island of Hong Kong where all the administration is. They have across from Hong Kong is the peninsula, Kowloon Peninsula, where they have a lot of activity. And then out further, they have what they call the New Territories. So it's a more rural area that abuts China itself. So when I went to school it was changed to Hong Kong, my first 3 months were in Kowloon, where I was just language study before I actually took classes. But my classes were out in the New Territory, so we have to take a train out to this Chinese university out there, which is always kind of fun to begin with. But sometimes we just go to the end of the line, and then you go to the end of the line, and then you just look across, and there you see China. So that was kind of interesting too. But it's always good to do those things when you're young.
Is that it then?
I think that's it.
Yeah. I don't think anybody has any more questions.
Sounds good.
I'm going to stop the recording then.
Okay.
Thank you so much.